Hello, here we are with Monica Henry, another of our wonderful teachers. Monica, it's fabulous to meet you. Do please introduce yourself.
Hi, Alex. It's nice to meet you. I'm Monica from Penny Spool Quilts. I live in Ottawa, Canada, and originally from Switzerland. I've been quilting for a little over 20 years and started designing quilt patterns just a bit over 5 years ago. Um, yeah, I
That's
think
perfect.
that's me in a nutshell. So
Awesome. And is this one of your quilt patterns behind you?
yes, it is. It's one of the newer ones and one that I'm actually talking about in the workshop.
Oh, brilliant. Well, let's start there then. Let's start with your workshop. Tell us about what that's going to be.
It's all about pre-cutting scraps and basically organizing them in a way that when inspiration strikes, you're ready to go and you can just dive right in.
I feel like this is something that's going to appeal to everyone. Um, do you actually have your scraps under control? Are you
And
actually walking the walk?
I am now. Um, it used to be a huge mess, just a big bin of everything stuffed in. Um, However, they came into my hands,
Mm.
and I realized that I was never actually using them because everything was scrunched up, and it was a mess to try and find things and um, having to iron them first, and then realizing that things weren't um, the right size for what I actually needed. So I had to dig more, and it just they sat on the shelf, and I was looking at them thinking, I really want to do something with them, and I never did. And
Yeah.
eventually, I came across the idea. Someone gave me the idea of pre-cutting, and
Mm.
it's been pretty much a game changer in terms of scrap quilting. So I'm trying to pass that on with this workshop.
Well, I think your description of what things were like before is pretty much where I am now. And in fact, I pulled out because I've got them in Ziploc bags by color. And I
Mm-hmm.
pulled out a couple of bags wanting to do something a bit scrappy and realized that they were all in need of ironing and
Mm-hmm.
ugh, just put them away again and decided to do something else
Yeah,
instead. So if this can help with that, then I'm sure this is going to be a really popular workshop.
I
Um,
hope it will
oh,
help.
so you said you started quilting about 20 years ago. How did that
Yeah.
come about?
Um, I was just at the beginning of university, and I honestly don't remember why, but my grandmother saw an ad in the flyer for her senior center that they were offering a patchwork course. And I don't know why she thought it would interest me, but she passed it on to me, and I thought, yeah, that sounds great. So off I went with my sewing machine and learned how to do this with a couple of elderly ladies and 20-year-old me. And
Oh, see, I thought maybe your grandmother wanted to do it with you.
no, actually, she was not interested at all.
Ah,
But she just somehow saw it and thought this would be something that I might like,
oh, that's
which
so
I'm
lovely.
really glad she did because I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you still remember your first quilt?
Yes, it's still in use, and it's one I bring to trunk shows because it's quite a talking piece. So
Oh, wonderful. Is it still in good condition?
mhm. Yep, yep.
Oh, wonderful.
It's I originally wanted to make a twin size for
Mm.
my bed. So we made a couple of pot holders and like a cushion in the class. And I thought, okay, I'm ready for the big quilt now. Um, as you do kind of when you have no experience and you don't know what you're getting yourself into.
Mhm.
So I decided I was going to make a quilt for my bed. And I, at the time, there were no like rulers and rotary cutters. So everything was done with cardboard templates and using pencil to mark the fabric and then cutting it out with scissors. And it's a double nine patch with like all these little squares in nine patches. And then you put the nine patches together to make another nine patch.
Mhm.
So there's an awful lot of small bits.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
don't think a single one of them actually lines up with the one next to it. But it took me 6 years in the end to actually finish the quilt, and it's still not where I originally envisioned it, but it's just going to stay there, and we're using it. Like it's usable, it works. It's just, it was quite the thing.
Yes, my first quilts required a lot of curved piecing, which I kind of jumped into not knowing anything about it, and then
Yeah.
ended up basically appliquing, like raw edge appliquing the pieces on top of each other, because I was not curved piecing ready
Yeah.
back then. So, but I still use that as well.
Yeah.
I think it's always wonderful when you see these things that are being used after year, and surviving in good condition as well, which is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
it's still a pattern I like. So it's not like I made something absolutely horrible as my first thing, and now I'm completely different in terms of what I like. So
no, well, let's talk about that, because you started quilting while you were in Switzerland, right? Which is where you
yes.
grew up.
Yeah.
Do you think the Swiss style of quilting differs to like the American or the Canadian style, because you're now in Ottawa?
I don't know if there's much of a difference in terms of like there's like a country sort of based style. But I was talking actually to another Swiss quilter not too long ago, and we were both realizing we prefer modern quilts. And she had said that most of the quilters she knows are also modern quilters, like Swiss quilters. And that's sort of who I follow on Instagram and that as well. They all tend to be leaning more modern. And we were wondering if maybe because we don't have that tradition that North America has from like the pioneers and all that, with the certain fabrics and certain types of blocks, that we just kind of jumped in at a later date and basically went straight to modern quilting.
Oh, interesting.
So I wonder if that has something to do with it. Although what I learned originally was very traditional, because there weren't really a lot of modern fabrics around, and we learned traditional blocks to start with.
Yeah.
But I pretty quickly like went sharp left turn into modern quilting, or at least modern leaning. So
yes, and is that how you describe your style now, as a modern quilter?
Definitely modern.
Yeah,
with a bit of like hint of traditional in there, but no, definitely modern.
And who are the people that that you follow online that are inspiring you at the moment?
There's quite a few. It seems like, I'm not sure. I know sort of a certain person to name, but I like sort of, actually I like following artists more as well, for inspiration as well.
Yeah.
Quilts, I like seeing what everybody does, and it's sort of just it's kind of a cloud of inspiration in a way. So it's not like I like this one person and they are sort of, I'm emulating their style or something like that.
Right.
But sort of a general bright, as long as it's like bright colors and sort of slightly modern looking, it usually stops the scroll. So
no, I know what you mean. And is there a big quilting community where you are now?
Yes, definitely. There are a number of guilds around here, modern ones as well as traditional. And although there is a quilt shop, or there's a few quilt shops around, there's one in town. But I actually find my community more online than in real life. So
right, I think that's increasingly common, because it's just so easy to access information and reach out to people. And so you mentioned that you started designing patterns, was it 5 years ago, or
roughly, yeah, about 2018 ish.
Yeah, awesome. So what caused you to start designing your own patterns? Like, what inspired that?
I've pretty quickly, once I learned how to do some basic blocks, I've pretty quickly started designing most of the quilts I make by myself. So I would draw them, and then sometimes jumping off of a pattern, but doing it differently, sometimes drawing it myself. And I'm a pretty terrible pattern follower. So I rarely actually finish a pattern the way it's written if I buy one. And I was just drawing various things, and I showed some of the drawings to a friend who also quilts, and she recommended that I send that one drawing in to Make Modern magazine for publication. And I thought, well, are you crazy? Like, why would they want a pattern from me? Like, I'm nobody. I'm not a pattern designer or known or anything. And ended up sending it in anyways, and they took it. So then I had to really quickly learn how to actually write patterns, because I knew what I was doing when I was drawing it and then making it, but the explanations so that someone else could follow, that was a bit of a learning curve there. So
that's amazing to have had that success early on. That's
I was very surprised. I didn't think that they would take it. So,
well, it all goes to show, I guess, like nothing ventured, nothing gained. You've got to put things out there. And so how do you go about designing a pattern? Do you immediately have a design in mind that you want to make into a pattern, or is it more of an iterative process?
A lot of times I'll start with like something piques my interest somewhere, or I'll see, like, say, tiles on a floor, or a wrought iron fence has an interesting pattern in it or something, and I'll think, oh, that would make an interesting pattern, and then I'll start drawing and playing with those shapes until I can do something with them, like until it becomes a pieceable thing.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. And then you've also got this this kind of separation between two parts of your site, where you've got the beautiful modern quilt patterns. You've also got the foundation paper piecing as well. How did you get into that and start making those patterns?
That was another one of those. I kind of had to figure out how to do it because I wanted to make something and it didn't work any other way. So my daughter and I made these stars out of like slightly see-through paper that you, so they're rainbow, I think it's 8-pointed star or something, that we hung in the window. And I was looking at it thinking that would look awesome on a quilt. But because of all the points, there's no way to piece that traditionally. So I learned how to make a foundation paper pieced pattern for myself just so I could make it, and then decided that I was going to start writing patterns that way.
And you've got some adorable blocks. I mean, the puffins are just so sweet.
A lot of those came out of a block challenge that I do every month.
Oh, right. Is this something with your business for your customers?
Yeah, there's a group called Quilt Block Mania, and we get a prompt every month, and sometimes you can skip months whenever you want. Like, it's not something you have to sort of commit to, but I try to do them every month. But you get a theme prompt, and then you design a block for it. And I've always found it easier to design foundation paper piece blocks for those rather than traditionally pieced ones, because I find my traditionally pieced ones don't really lend themselves to specific shapes, or like things, if that makes sense. And the foundation pieced ones are more things and not shapes.
Right.
If that makes any sense. So like there's a lemonade cup or the puffins, like you said, and the traditional ones are more like the one behind me, where you can tell it's a heart, but it's not like a heart shape. So
yes, and if it wasn't on point, I suppose it would be an L, or possibly an F. So yes, no, that does make
could be anything. So
yeah. Tell me, we've been talking about your business, Penny Spool Quilts. Where did the name come from?
That's from the nursery rhyme, Pop Goes the Weasel.
Oh, really?
That's the first line, penny for a spool of thread, a penny for a needle.
Oh my goodness.
That's the way the money goes, pop goes the weasel.
Weasel. Do you know, I don't think I ever knew the beginning lines of that. I kind of
Yeah.
got more the tune in my head from
Yeah.
having those little crank boxes when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
The pop at the end. Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny. And Penny Spool Quilts is how people can find you online, right?
Yes.
And we've got all your social media links on your teacher page as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So since you started running your business, I guess it started with the High, with the magazine publication. What are some achievements that you've been particularly proud of during this time?
Well, actually, speaking of the foundation paper piecing, I made, just at the beginning of the pandemic, a series of ice cream blocks. So there's popsicles and ice cream bars and ice cream cone, and it's a series of 6 blocks that I put on my Etsy shop and on my website as well, and got contacted through Etsy by a publisher in England. That they were wondering if I'd be interested in contributing some blocks to a book about foundation paper piecing.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool to get, like, instead of me going and finding things and like stepping out there, that someone would actually look me up and ask me to contribute. That was kind of a pretty neat feeling. So.
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. So yeah, just again putting yourself out there, and even out there on Etsy for advantages. Oh my goodness, yes, I can understand that would have been a huge highlight and achievement. And is the book already out?
It is, yeah. It's called the 100 Paper Pieced Quilt Blocks.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, I'll add a link to it in the interview notes. So we've talked about your workshop a little bit and about your current inspirations. Are there things on your quilt bucket list that you want to tackle in the future?
One thing would be, I'm going to call it fancy quilting. Because generally I either send my quilts out for long arming, or I do very basic straight line quilting on my domestic machine. And this past summer, I took a course on a sit down long arm machine. And learned a little bit about ruler work and free motion quilting. And I really enjoyed doing that. And I have a quilt that has been sitting at a quilt top, I should say, that's been sitting in a drawer for a couple of years now, because it's got this huge expanse of negative space that wants to be quilted in some kind of a special way. And I've never really had any ideas for how to do it or known how to do it. So that is the next thing I'd like to tackle. So if hopefully I can maybe rent a long arm somewhere that I can work on it myself, or I'll find a way to do it on my domestic machine.
Right, that was going to be my question, about whether you were investing in a long arm for yourself, because they just, apart from anything else, they've cost, of course, but they just take up so much space as well.
Yeah, well, the sit down ones take up a whole lot less, so because there's not that big frame,
right?
So it's just a large table, and the machine is stationary, and you move the fabric. So it's like just like a large domestic machine. But even that, it's expensive. So
yeah.
Probably gonna see if our local shop, I know our local shop has machines that people can rent. So I want to see if they have space open that I can actually do this.
And I know I've rented time on a machine and done the freehand, which I think is kind of what everybody tries at the shows, where you're using the handles to drive the thing around. What's it like using rulers?
I like it a lot better, because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and the shapes just come out way better with the ruler than if I try to do it freehand. So there's a lot less like jerky curves and things. So
yes, I know there were a number of quilts that won awards at the recent Pacific International Quilt Fest, which was in Santa Clara in California recently. And a number of those had big open spaces, so these kind of modern quilts. There's one of a polar bear that particularly sticks in my mind, with a lot of detail in the quilting.
Yeah.
And I know that we have other teachers, like Joe Cunningham comes to mind, of course, who puts a lot of detail into his quilting that he does, that doesn't necessarily reference, well, it probably references, but doesn't necessarily pay attention to what the actual shapes are of the fabric that he's working on. Well, I look forward to seeing what comes out of this next stage of things. That sounds awesome. I think we've talked about a whole load of things. This interview is being recorded in November, but it's going to be broadcast in January. Are there any big things coming up with your business that you have planned for 2024 that you want to mention now?
I haven't got any fixed plans yet, but I have a few things on my list of next year is the year I'm going to do them. So hopefully I have a couple of workshops that I'd like to finish up or polish up so that I can actually do them.
Right.
And they're not just floating around my head and our ideas. And then there's a block of the month that I've been sort of dragging, kicking and screaming from year to year. That I really would like to finally finish up and offer as an actual program. So hopefully there's 3 or 4 things, and I'm hoping that 2 of them will happen.
Wonderful. And would those blocks of the month be foundation paper pieced again?
Yes, that one would be, yeah.
Lovely. Yes, one of the magazines from the UK that I read has a long history of these foundation paper piece blocks of the month, and they're just so adorable and come out beautifully in the examples that I see afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for the time. And yes, I encourage everyone to click on the links in the interview notes and head over to your teacher page to access all your social media.
That'd be lovely. Looking forward to meeting new people.
Bye.
Bye-bye.